So I need to make that.
Yeah.
I'll need to make that.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Get stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of regular and consent agenda. Are there any revisions to the regular or consent agendas?
Yeah, on the advertised agenda, on the consent agenda, letter D number 6 will remove from that consent agenda.
Questions, Commissioner? I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Wes made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Lisa seconded. All those in favor? Next up is information and recognitions. We have a financial update.
Yep, so in the information given to you, you have the cash flow reports, and just consistently, as we talked about before, we're running 22 to 25% in cash balance month to month. And the other update to the financials are that we are in the middle of our budgeting season now, and so you'll be getting continued reports from this point forward on our budgeting process as we continue to dig into it and then set up our budgeting calendar for the rest of the year.
New business? Consideration of approval of overnight trip.
Yes, so the overnight trip is for our Lady Eagle basketball team. They are taking an overnight trip for D1 camp, I believe is what it was called. And it's where they can play multiple games and do a lot of good team building. It's for 8th graders through our seniors, and we're seeking approval for that trip.
A motion?
So moved.
Made a motion to approve the overnight trip. Do I have a second? Joe seconded. All those in favor? Consideration of approval of elementary textbook rental fees.
Yes, there's no changes to that. It's just updating for the dates for this coming 22-23 school year, and just seeking approval for the renewal of the existing rates.
It's roughly the same.
They are, yeah. All we did is change the dates for this year, so they're rolling.
I noticed there weren't any social studies textbooks. Is that because they do that online? Or?
Yeah, yes, the resources are online and so forth, and that's something that we're looking at for the future for increasing, potentially looking at other social studies materials. But yeah, as of right now, the ones that we have are paid for, and so therefore we don't need to charge fees for them.
I have a motion to approve the.
Move to approve.
Lisa made a motion to approve the elementary textbook rental fees. Greg seconded. All those in favor? Carries. Consideration of the elementary school handbook.
Yeah, similar to the last item, it's basically a change for the elementaries. It's just a change in dates for next year and updating calendars and those types of things. There was no changes as far as content of it other than dates.
And all those dates were discussed among the entire admin PT.
Yeah, the dates being like adding the calendar for next year and those types of things. So the elementary principals got together and made sure everything was aligned between the two schools.
I, as always, noticed a few edits or editing things that it may just be, for whatever. It was just a line break mostly.
Oh, okay.
And then there was one section that was in a lighter font. It made me wonder are you sending them home? Will they be sent home electronically, or are they getting hard?
Generally, the handbooks nowadays are put online, so they're available to everyone. What we found in the past, and that's a question Mrs. Steffi and Mr. Gowan isn't here to answer that, but generally we're doing it that way because they're a lot more accessible that way, and especially with the new app and everything coming out, all those things will be available at a touch, so they can get that that way. And another thing that happens sometimes is when we pull them up on different formats, like if it was written in Word and then it was pulled up in Google, sometimes the fonts are going to get switched around, so it may not look exactly like it is in Word.
So that you're saying they're not printed anymore at all?
To my knowledge, they are not. They're just keeping an electronic format because a lot of them, either in, well, not necessarily in elementary, but a lot of them end up at the bottom of lockers or stuffed away somewhere, and it's a lot more accessible, especially with our technology that we have
So
today.
it'll be on the new app, most likely the website, any other, by request, by.
Oh, absolutely. Any time that someone would want it, yeah, we could actually provide them a hard copy as needed, but they're all accessible with the technologies that we have in a much more robust manner than we've ever had before.
Okay, so I have a few other things. I noticed in the lunch section, it said students may be denied a meal. I know that most of our kids, that's just one of those things.
Yeah, that's something that
But the fact that you say may doesn't mean that.
they will. Yeah, we make sure the kids are taken care of.
But then in that same section, there was a share fund. They talked about a share fund, and I just wondered about contributions to that. It's like the leftover lunch money that people don't claim or ask back and goes into the share fund. That's the first I'd heard of it, and I just wondered if, I don't know, I just wondered if people in the community, because we have a lot of churches that want to do things for the school, if they know about that share fund, if people outside the corporation can make contributions.
That's a great question, and I'll have to look into what that is. I'm sure that's a possibility. I know in my previous experience in other schools, we had private donations to that fund for milk and those types of things. So.
That one. There's also listed corporal punishment that I didn't think we could do anymore, so I looked up our policy on corporal punishment, and I would suggest that policy be put there by that, so it doesn't.
Policy number.
Parents out. I mean, it basically says, we're not really going to.
Right.
But it is still an option, right, as far as the state goes. And then in the testing programs, there's no mention of the screening that they do for high ability, and that should probably be in there. And then the other suggestion I would have is that I really liked, I didn't remember reading it before, so this time I was reading it as if it was the first time I've ever read one. It's real welcoming, and there's nice transitions, and it talks about, almost every section begins with how we want to work with parents. But as it got further down, and then the last paragraph was on visiting volunteer, the tone just seemed a little. And I would suggest that we continue that same tone to the very end, especially when we're talking about parents visiting.
Do we have a deadline to get this approved?
Well, the start of school. I mean, that's the goal. And because it's electronic, we can make changes as we go. So
we could also approve the way it is with proposed changes to come. Have that.
Right. It's not locked. It doesn't lock it in for the rest of the year. No, we can approve it as it is, so that we have a working copy, and then we can any edits or anything that happen, or any things that happen when we get new policy, because new policy is coming your way from Neola, not in this meeting, but coming up, and so that could change something that we would need to change there too.
You can table it.
Are you comfortable with this policy if those areas are addressed moving forward, or do you want us?
What's our follow-up procedure? What's our follow-up plans? Let's say we approve it today, and for anything for that matter, if we approve something pending these, X, Y, and Z changes, I feel like we don't have a norm that forces us to go back and make sure that those were changed.
Well, we would ask for a submission of those areas. If we still don't meet those areas, they can still be readdressed. The overall handbook would be. It's whatever you feel comfortable with, Lisa.
Well, I mean, it's okay the way it is. I just think that there's some things that should be added, especially the high ability testing. The parents should know.
You wanna make a motion of some sort?
Yeah, I move to table it until,
Second. Lisa made a motion to table the elementary school handbook. Greg seconded. All those in favor? Consideration of approval of the purchase of the voice K time and attendance management software.
So this is a project that we've been working on for a while at the central office, actually since I came on board, when I realized that we were using handwritten time cards. And our current biannual state Board of Accounts audit is underway right now. We're actually completing it tomorrow. And that's kind of moved us to this next stage, is that's kind of put more gasoline on the fire to get this done. And so there's two main reasons that we're proposing this. One is to meet the requirements of time and attendance tracking on the integrity of that and the documentation of it, which directly links the time worked to the time recorded. It's required by the state of the Board of Accounts, so we want to make sure we do that and meet that criteria. The second thing is the efficient transfer of data from time recording system to our ComPatrol, our existing ComPatrol accounting system. Basically, this system is a direct tie-in to our existing systems that we already have, which eliminates all kinds of paper shuffling and multiple steps to get payroll done. And so, basically, we're seeking approval to purchase that equipment and software tonight, so that we can get that implemented. So that by the time school gets started.
so, are teachers gonna have, the time, I mean, is it time clock?
No, this will be anyone that we have to track their time for. It won't
So
be.
it's not the teachers, it's like your
It's
support staff.
those who are paid hourly.
Okay.
Does not include the students, unless they're an hourly employee of the district. So.
And I see attendance.
Yeah, I wondered that too.
Because there's gonna be 8 clock-in stations, the way I read this, correct?
Yeah, so we're trying to make it as convenient as possible for our employees who do have to utilize the system, and so therefore we want to have it at in several buildings. We have big buildings, so we don't want to have them to come into a single door to make sure that happens. So we want to have it at certain access points throughout the strategic places throughout the buildings. And the bigger the building, the more access points there will be.
If there's a power outage, how do you handle that?
Great question. You know anything about the power outage part? I'm sure they have I'm sure this isn't a unique thing I'm sure they have a back UPS or something on the
Right,
system.
that's the way I understood it. They have a backup.
I did see, but I didn't see. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, I saw that they mentioned those as optional, but we didn't choose to go that route. So then that leads to my question: do we have a paper backup? That so gentleman comes in, he goes to swipe, it's not there. Paper backup, gets signed by his boss, whatever that is, type of thing.
Logan, you can probably help me out with that.
Yeah, I think that option was if we use like our own computers and
right.
had them log in. But with their time clocks, it should all be backed up.
Okay.
So that's why we didn't go with that option, since we're going to use their hardware.
And if all else fails, I'm sure there's a way to manually enter it if we
Yes,
need
and
to.
they did if there's a problem, I can, and that's what I'm doing now anyway, but I could fix a few or whatnot.
And to elaborate a little bit on what you said, Corey, we're very antiquated because all that paperwork comes to you and you physically have to enter it into the system.
Hundreds of pieces of papers a year.
And that's after it's gone through several other
Right.
stations before it even got to her.
Yeah. The admin, then for sure Evie, and then myself.
Is there an annual licensing fee that will go with this, or?
I think up at the top, I think it was 5,000 or 6,000. I don't know that was actually the license fee.
Maintenance support.
It's attached there at the top. I don't have it here in front of me.
The way it reads, it's $5,095.
Yeah. Annually, but
Yes.
will be, yes,
And that would
After
probably
the
include any
initial-
updates.
Right.
right, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Need a motion to approve the purchase of the voice K time and attendance management software. Do I have a second? Lisa seconded. All those in favor? Consideration of approval of the purchase of Chromebooks.
So the technology department came to me requesting the purchase of more Chromebooks because as it is right now, we have no extra devices or bags if enrollment goes up at all for next year. This will also help fill in our gaps when there's a device loss, those types of things. It's just we need to fill in some gaps and get some new devices. Therefore, based on the recommendation of our five-star group, and their research of the best options that are out there, we're seeking approval for the purchase of the Chromebooks and the cases. I think there's 50 Chromebooks and cases.
One question, this is just based on past history. Are we paying for these outright or are we financing?
No, we're paying for them. Yes.
So it's just past history is the reason why I was asking.
Nope, we're paying for them.
Any questions?
That we're paying for them, is that, I'm sure there's a benefit somehow versus the finance, or, what's the,
Interest.
what were the
We're not
options?
paying
Yeah,
interest.
we have the money to do it, and so therefore we're gonna just buy them that way. And then student fees that we recapture go back towards that.
I don't know if there's, sometimes with leasing things, there's some other financial benefits, but.
When we first started this, the company walked in there with a big fancy proposal, financing and all, and then we dug into it, the interest is like 25%. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're not doing us a favor.
I'll motion.
Greg made a motion to approve the purchase of the Chromebooks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Joe seconded. All those in favor? Review of return to in-person instruction plans.
We are required to revisit the return to in-person instruction plan every 6 months. We did update the policy in March of this year when they had some changes at the federal level. But I want to stay on the June and December schedule for maintenance and documentation purposes for all of our federal grants, because I want to just stay on that. So even if we have other times, I still want to stay within those guidelines, so we're on track always to have that as checks and balances for our system. We've updated the dates for the 2022 school year, so before it said the 2021-22 school year, so this is updated, so I can submit it with our federal grants this fall for the 2022-23 school year. Only minor edits were made for clarification purposes as we were going through it, but this policy has served us extremely well throughout this last year, and especially that second semester has been extremely well, so I didn't see any need for changes other than dates.
It still meets all the state and
And
federal.
meets all the good requirements that we need to have, yep.
Have a motion to approve the
So moved.
I'll second.
What's made a motion to approve? Greg seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries. Superintendent's report.
Other business, hang on, hold on, I have some other business.
Other business. There wasn't anything listed, so.
Since the legislative liaison wasn't put on the schedule. Okay, this is actually some interestingly good news, okay, which is probably not the proper way to say it, but I'm gonna more or less read this because I thought this was very interesting, and it goes to some things that we have talked about improving education at South Putnam, and in general, this comes from the state. So it's to the State Board of Education from the Office of Teaching and Learning concerning NLPS, which everybody knows is Next Level Programs of Study for Quantitative Reasoning Science Credit, also known as QR, in case you're into that. They give a bunch of pursuants to the Core 40 and all this other stuff, but the IDOE requests the State Board of Education's consideration and approval for the Next Level Programs of Study courses for science and quantitative reasoning courses for the Core 40 in academic honors, technical honors credits recommended by Indiana Educator Committees. I'm just going to read a couple of these because there's a nice long list. But I think this is kind of interesting. So they're looking at things like smart manufacturing, advanced precision machining, pharmacy tech, website database development, manufacturers, aviation capstone management. And then they go into some other things like precision machine capstones, smart manufacturing capstones, so capstone-oriented courses that when the kids take these courses, you know, they have the ability then, when they graduate, to what? Be employed, be able to do some things, besides just say, well, I got a degree, or I got my education. So I thought this was an interesting piece to share with the board, because I think it goes to part of what Corey has mentioned about, you know, continuing to strengthen our education here at South Platte. And I think this goes to the other piece that we're looking to do, which is to help kids that when they do graduate, they have something they can go and do if they choose not to go to college. So I just wanted to share that with you. And that's it.
Thanks.
I know it's also not on here, the other business, we've kind of had this open thing with the gas pipeline easement and the power easements. What is our plan for those currently? I saw a little bit of email traffic, but we have something solidified for.
So sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we are working on finalizing that next meeting to resolve all that. I think we have the final drawing we've received, and so coordinating with the building lease corporations and ourselves and the attorneys and the utility company, getting all of our players here, and we're trying to do that as soon as possible. It could be as soon as next week.
Superintendent's report.
This person isn't here tonight, but I wanted to mention her. I want to recognize Penny Long. We recognize her in the consent agenda, but she's our Fillmore Elementary secretary, treasurer, and whatever hat she wears on a particular day, nurse. You know, just does a lot of roles out there, and she is retiring. So I just wanted to mention her, and she served our community and the Fillmore Elementary family with great heart and dedication for many, many years, and she's going to be missed, but we wish her absolutely all the best in her retirement, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned her tonight. Secondly, just a little bit of celebration and reflection here in the month of June. And this is the wrap-up of my first year here at South Putnam, and it's been an incredible year. We've had many, many victories on our athletic fields and courts and in our classrooms. There's a lot of neat things happening. Our staff members and our students have been recognized for their excellence both locally and all throughout the state. I've greatly appreciated the opportunity to serve here, the school district, our staff, our students, the board, and in turn, I feel I found a new family here, and the South Putnam family. So I look forward to the excitement of this new year as we start year 2 with me as superintendent, and all the incredible successes. I know we're going to have a lot more stories like we had this year. So this isn't a one-time thing. We're going to have a lot of amazing things happen with our staff and students. I just know things are, and the things that we're doing and the programs and things that we're doing is going to be amazing. So I just wanted to thank you, the board, for giving me the privilege to serve as your superintendent.
Well, thank you, Corey, for coming on board, and we look forward to the path we're going down and where we're headed to, because we're excited as a board, I believe.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
We've made a motion to adjourn. Wes seconded. Favor? Meeting adjourned. Our next regular school board meeting will be Wednesday, July 13th at 7 p.m. in the Middle School High School Learning Center.